Hello, welcome to part 4 of the Johnny Blender 3 series. In this part, we're going to, modify the hair just a little bit. I'd like to kind of straighten this area up right here. And boom. All set. We're also going to go in and, give him some eyebrows. And this little area right here between his eyebrows is kind of bugging me. So let's grab those guys and we'll just smooth those up. Yeah, just bring that out maybe. Grab all these and smooth. That's better. Okay, we're going to work on the eye area, the eyebrows, and we're going to go ahead and add some eyelids and maybe eyeball as well. So get this rounded out a little bit better. Grab all these guys. And let's go ahead and add a loop right here just so we can get a little bit more control over this rounding area here. Okay, so that's pretty decent, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in and throw some eyebrows on there. In edit mode, I'm just going to click over here, just out in the open area over here. Don't want to do it here because if you do it here, the mirror modifier will take effect, and we don't want that to mess with what we're going to do here. So just click out here somewhere. Shift A, there we go. And just add another cube. We're going to scale it down and just move it over here, and let's kind of zoom in here. Scale it on the x-axis here, and maybe scale it just a little bit smaller. There we go. Now let's Control R, add a couple of loops in here. Just scroll the mouse wheel after you hit Control R, and then hold down Alt and right click to grab that whole loop. And let's move that over towards the edge. Same thing on this side, and let's make this one a little smaller. And then let's add a loop in here. We've got a nice general eyebrow shape. Okay. Just kind of sculpt that the way you want. Now, one thing you might notice is it's kind of jaggedy. It doesn't have the smoothness that the rest of the model, that we are inside the head model right now, by the way, editing the actual head mesh. So we've added this eyebrow to the head mesh, which you can see the mirror modifier automatically mirrored the eyebrow since we're, like I said, on the head mesh. So, but when you add new geometry into an existing smooth model, it doesn't always copy the smoothness. So what you got to do is just do the same thing. Just go back to your toolbox over here and just go to smooth, and it'll smooth it again. Smooth everything then. Okay, so our eyebrow needs a little bit more, a few more vertices in here to get it to look the way I want. So just Control R, just add some loops in there, and then let's just scale that out so it kind of rounds it out a little bit better, and maybe this one as well. Okay, so now if I hit Control L, keyboard's getting worn out. It's hard to see some of the buttons, but that'll select all of the attached vertices to that particular piece of the model. You can have multiple meshes inside one model, obviously, as we're seeing here. So let's just move this up here and stick it where it's supposed to go there on his eyebrows. Maybe kind of get a nice not quite an angry look, but the arched look, kind of like, oh, I don't know, like Michael Keaton or Jack Nicholson, kind of like they have. Rotate that out. And just kind of stick it into the face mesh there, so it kind of just merges in. And then we'll grab this last edge here. And don't want that guy. Just drag this back, maybe increase the influence. There? Okay. Okay, so that's pretty nice looking eyebrows there. Might even go in and add another loop right there on the edge so it kind of squares them up, kind of like the hair. Got to keep everything uniform, kind of the same. And tell you what, let's grab this arc here, this arch, and move it a little further out, maybe about like so. There we go. Okay, so we got our eyebrows and the hair. You know what we can do? We can go ahead and add the hair to the face mesh as well. And the way you do that, unless you want a bald character or something, but the way you do that, the way you add two meshes together, is you select the one you want to. Okay, the head is going to be the main mesh, so we want to select it last. So I'm going to select the hair piece first, and then hold down Shift, and then right-click on the head mesh. Now I'm going to hit Control-J, and it merges them together. You can see it changed the color because this model only has one material on it, which we'll get into materials later on. But it's all one piece now. So if I tab into edit mode, you can see I can edit any part of it. Now, one problem that you might run into when you do something like this is, say you want to go in and edit the head mesh a little bit more, but the hair piece is in the way. Well, piece of cake, just grab one of the vertices and Control-L, kind of like we did with the eyebrow earlier. It selects all of these connected vertices, and you just hit H, and it'll hide it. Now, if you want to see it, kind of an outline of it, just go into wireframe view, and you can still see it on there, but it's kind of grayed out, so you can kind of get an idea of where it's at without actually having to worry about it being there. And I can see, with this technique, I can see that the vertices here on the back of the head are almost going through the hair. So let's fix that real quick. Let's grab those guys and just move them forward so they're definitely inside that hairline. Okay, so now we'll come back out of edit mode. Okay, let me go ahead and save this. Saving it as 04, obviously, as the usual. Now, let's go ahead and throw a sphere in here to act as our eyeball. So I'm going to put my 3D cursor right there in the middle, about like so. Then I'm going to go to side view and make sure it's in the right place here. So then when I rotate around, I can see the 3D cursor is right there in that left eye socket. It's our right side, but it's the model's left side. So if we're looking at him right here, this is his left side. So this will be his left eye socket that we're looking at. So Shift A, just go ahead and add a mesh, and we're going to add a UV sphere. There we go. Now it's pretty decently high polygon count, and we don't need it that high. So let's drop it down over here. So before you touch anything, as far as the model goes, you add the UV sphere, it pops this in there. Before you touch anything, come over here to your UV sphere settings here. In segments 32, we don't need 32. We could probably get away with 12, so we'll just go to 12. You can see that lowers it down. Same thing right here. We don't need 16. We'll just go 12 there as well. And a size of 1, well, that's just way too big. So let's scale it way down right there. Now, you don't have to do all this here. I mean, the segments and rings, yeah, it's a good idea to do it here. But the size, you can always just tab into edit mode and scale it like this. Which, once you do, like I said before, don't touch anything, because once you do, you no longer have the setting, the ability to edit everything. So, get the segments and loops there and rings, the right settings before you tab into edit mode or try to move it around or anything. So, okay, so we got our eyeball. Now, typically when you make an eyeball, you want to have the rings here kind of facing this way, so you can use that topology there to create the iris and pupil and everything. So what we're going to do is just hit R to rotate, and then 90 degrees on the x-axis. So there we go. So you just hit R, 90 on your numpad, X, and it rotates at 90 degrees on the x-axis. So one important thing to do, you notice, is kind of bugging out of the head here. So we want to move it back. You don't want to move it back in edit mode because, I mean, you can fix it, but it's just easier if you don't. See that little orange dot there? Right now, that's the center of our sphere there. So if we tab out of edit mode and we rotate it around, you can see it rotates around its center. And that's keeps it nice and spherical. It rotates where it's supposed to. Now, if we would tab into edit mode and move it back manually like this inside edit mode, and then tab out and try to rotate it, it's still going to rotate around that center point. The origin is what it's called. Now we can fix that, like I said. Just tab into edit mode, and we're going to, since we have everything selected, we can hit Shift S and go cursor to selected, and it'll go ahead and center that cursor up there, even though the center of the model is still that orange dot. Our 3D cursor is now centered on our model where we need it to be. And now we can go Object, Transform, Origin to 3D Cursor. Boom, and you see it pops that orange dot right there where it needs to be. So, you can fix it if you move it in edit mode, but it's a lot easier if you just come out of edit mode and move it manually in object mode. So, okay, so let's just get it kind of lined up here. And obviously it's got the flat, angular, jagged look, so let's go ahead and turn the smooth shading on. I'm not going to give it a subdivision surface modifier just yet. We'll work on that later on. Right now it's kind of just a placeholder just to kind of show where the eyeball is going to be. Okay, so we've got our eyeball situated there. Let's go ahead and grab our head model, tab back into edit mode, and kind of fix up this eye socket to where it's a little more round and it fits that eyeball a little better. We can even grab this outer ring right there and kind of drag it inwards, about like so. Okay. Well, not okay just yet. Let's clean it up just a little more. Also helps if you don't have your proportional editing set too high. If you move one part, it moves all of the parts around it, and that may not be a desirable outcome at that point. So, okay, so that'll work. Okay, now what I want to do is give him some eyelids, but I want them to be separate from the actual head mesh here. So it's kind of going to be kind of like the eyebrows or the hair. It's going to be in the same model, but it's going to be a different section of the mesh. So before I do that, I'm going to grab the eyeball. I'm going to Shift D, and it's going to duplicate it. And I just click out, and I can move it around. You can see that there's now two of them. They're just in the exact same position right now. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis again, because this time I want to cut it in half along these along this topology. So this is more beneficial for it to be in this orientation. So before we go any further, let's hit N to bring up our Properties tab, and let's kind of go through here and kind of rename everything so it's more fitting of the actual model. So we'll grab this, and right now it's still named Cube because when we originally added the cube and started playing with it, that's what it was named. So it's named Cube. Let's go ahead and rename that to JB, and I like to separate words with underscores. You don't have to, you can use just a space if you like, but I like to keep things all in one long word separated with underscores. So anyways, so it's JB underscore head. Oops. JB underscore head. You gotta hit enter to lock it in before just clicking out. Okay, so now we'll grab the sphere.001, and that means that the original sphere is just sphere. And when he made a duplicate, it automatically renamed it with the .001, just so, because two objects can have the same name in Blender. So let's go ahead and name this eyelid underscore top. Okay. And you know what? It doesn't even matter because we're going to be joining it to the head mesh, so it'll lose its name anyway. So, don't bother with that. I mean, you can if you want to, but it's kind of pointless. So, okay, so I'll tab back in edit mode for the eyelids here, and I'm going to grab the face select mode and select all of these faces here on the bottom. Just kind of rotate around, make sure we've got them all, and I'm going to Control P. Oops, not Control P, just P by itself, and that separates. I'm going to separate the selection. So now, if I tab back out, you can see I have that's the original eyeball. I have this top half of the sphere, and then I have the bottom half of the sphere. And those are going to be our eyelids for the top and bottom. So before we add them to the head mesh, I'd like to give them a little bit of thickness, because right now if you rotate it down, I mean, it'll work, but you can kind of see it's paper thin. You know, it's only 1 polygon thin. So let's do this. I'm gonna Control Z, undo that where I rotated it. Actually, let's rotate it a little bit like this so we can actually see what we're doing. And I'm going to add like I did with the hair before, I'm going to add a solidify modifier to it. Okay, and you know what? Let's go ahead and add a subdivision surface so we can kind of see it in the smooth view. Let's go ahead and pop that up above. And they stack. This is called the modifier stack, by the way, because they're stacked on top of each other. Okay, so let's mess with our thickness here. Actually, if we Z into wireframe view, we can see it a little bit better. So let's set it a thickness of 0.02. Let's just type that in. Okay. And offset will come out. Let's do offset the offset to -0.5. There we go. And then the crease here. Don't worry about the inner, I don't guess. The outer. I really can't tell much difference, I guess, because if the subsurf was down below, then you could tell a difference, but we're not going to worry about that. So let's pop that back up. We will, once we get it as part of the actual head mesh, we will clean it up a little bit more. So, okay. Sometimes, let me try this. It doesn't always work for me, but if you select a model and then shift select another model that has some modifiers on it, you can copy them over, and you just hit spacebar and you copy modifier. And like I said, it doesn't always work, so let's try that. Nope. Okay, I guess it only works maybe on rigging and things like that. I'm not for sure. Don't quote me on any of that. So we'll just do the same thing. We'll just add a solidify and then give it these same settings. And I'll go ahead and get rid of that subsurf right now, since we add it. Once we add it to the head mesh, it'll receive its subsurf that's applied to the head mesh. So, okay, so what do we got set here? 0.02 and -0.5. So let's set that 0.02 and -0.5. There we go. Okay, so now we have our eyelids and their thickness. So let me go ahead and grab this one. Alt-R to clear its rotation. And let's go ahead and apply that. Grab that one and apply that. And now we'll grab both of them and shift select the head and then Control J to join those together. So now he's got some eyelids. Okay, so it's 18 minutes and 30 seconds. I think I'm going to call this part 4 done, and we'll get into the actual eyeball in part 5. So keep this one a little shorter than the other. The other ones have ran long, so this one will run a tiny bit short. So okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in part 5.